Hello, and well met. WR Freight here. Just wanted to bring you along and let you see what's going on with the map of Loren so far. So yeah, we're back on the world of Areth, and I took a day to do some work with Alderun, but my main focus I want to have on Loren for the moment and the world of Areth. So, mind the creative clutter. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Anyway, uh, let's get you turned around here and let you see what's going on so far. Oh, let me get my hand out of the way. Shame on me. Anyway, here we go. All right. As you can see, I've been doing some lettering and letter placement for names and such. If you recall the other day, I was putting in some of these like this. So I was going back in and filling in the ones that can be filled in. There's some of them, like the amber plains, that will had to be redone after I do the terrain itself. So I'm going to do the ones that I can do for now. And while I'm doing a couple of them, I'm going to bring you along for the ride and let you see. All right, let's get you over where you can see what's going on. And might even flip you up to where you can see just a little better. All right, can you see that? All right, I see Nakamari Forest right here. So you know what? That's a good place to start. Nakamari Forest. Oh Lord, let's see if I actually. You know what? Yeah, let's go with Nakamari Forest. I was about to debate on that, but hey, this is a good way to exemplify what I'm doing. If I don't put my elbow on a sharp object and. Okay, this takes some time and patience. Okay. I'm going to put this in here. This lettering is not an easy thing to do and takes time, patience. This is not an easy task by any means. And should not be taken lightly or have any distractions while doing, as the slightest mistake can actually go and be very disastrous for the immediate outcome or for the long-term outcome. Okay, so I usually take like a pause between each word. Don't want to get in a hurry. Anything worth doing is worth taking its time to do. Don't get me wrong, some things can take a little longer than they should, but that just depends on the person. And like this, for example, I should have done more with this over the years, and that is completely on me because I allowed myself to get distracted on other things. That is some of the hardest stuff to do. A Y is a difficult letter to work with. All right, the forest. Okay, let's do this. Forgive my silence while I'm working on this. All right. Alright, now you see Nakamari Forest. Let's get you where you can see it a little bit better. That was what you just saw me work on. Again, being hand, it's not going to have the computer perfect hand writing and features that you would expect. Yeah. But it's because you've got handwritten material. Let's try the wyvern wood. Okay, as you see, I use this paper here. I'm gonna close this pen up so it doesn't dry while I'm explaining. But as you see this paper here, I'm using this as an anti-fouling pad, so that my arms aren't getting down there and smudging and moving things around and possibly creating something that I have to go back and fix later before I can apply the ink. You see, that's what makes that whole matter important, is you want to be able to take time to build what you need to build. This is not a process to be rushed. In fact, world building in and of itself is a Herculean task, because in a sense you're actually taking on a godlike role as you're creating a realm and creating the life and the biospheres and everything that is involved in making a world. There is something so in depth about that, yet there is something so passionate, and just there's a beauty to it that I can't express in words. But I feel so much at peace when I am working on my fantasy worlds, whether it is working on the maps, whether it's creating the castles, creating kingdoms, writing histories, myths, legends, creating the cosmology. And there's just so much more to go on. In one of my future updates, in one of my future videos, I will bring out my cosmology map of the world of Areth that shows the divine realms in its own right. This is a lengthy process, because you want everything to fall into place. I mean, I've listened to some world building podcasts and stuff like that, and man, I'm going to be honest with you, there's always some great suggestions in that. That's something I've done recently. But at the same time, I've also found that in the last 21 years or so, and all the years before that, when I was going through all the trial and error of trying to build my own worlds, I was building worlds to play Dungeons and Dragons, because I didn't just want to go with the established Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, Mystera, Ravenloft, which I love Ravenloft, but and I love all the ones of before, Dragonlance and such. However, I always wanted to create my own realm, my own kingdoms with its own special interests and stuff. So world building has been a major part of anything I've done, from Dungeons and Dragons to writing to art. In fact, a fun fact is that the beginning of Balador actually took place, which is the name of the entire setting, is Balador. It's the world of Areth. Balador is one of the twin kingdoms. We'll go into that at a later date, but what is important right at this moment, and what I want to focus on, is that Balador was started when I was full into Castlevania, Gothic horror, ghosts, monsters, stuff like that. Ravenloft was, I hadn't even really gotten into Ravenloft yet, and this is what's funny. But I was big into Castlevania and things like that, and into Gothic horror, and I was reading, and I was beginning to write my stories for Gothic horror and ghost stories and such. But my mom approached me one day. I was playing a game called Wizards and Warriors, Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2, back on the old NES. And my mother approached me and offered a challenge because she saw that I had picked up the diamond sword. So I've got those games still just because of the inspiration that they began with Balador. But I picked up the diamond sword, and my mom tossed this challenge about this special sword that was hidden. And I thought I would be a wisecracker since I was in the Dungeons and Dragons and I was in the fantasy, and I thought I would be able to outwit, as teenagers, we all do. We think we can outwit our parents. I mean, here we are with a little bit of an idea of what the world could be right in our own ideas, and here they've had years of experience in the world, and we think we can outwit them. Yeah, it ain't happening. Anyway, now that I've chased that squirrel, I looked and I was like, well, if a sword like that, it would have to be created of this, and she's like, aha, but yes. But what about the quest to go on for it? And we went back and forth with this. There's a whole story about it. I wanted to say there's a whole story about it on my website, but it might be my old blog page, and I need to move it over to my website. So that's something I'll have to check in on. But anyway, so I've got the entire story of how that came to be there. But the point is, the original seed that would become the world of Areth began when I was in 8th grade with a single challenge. And that challenge would re-emerge time and time again as I was building worlds and I was building adventures. And so years later, after some friends and I would go camping, and I was deeper into Dungeons and Dragons and like role playing fantasy based video games and stuff. The adventure that and some of the realms that ideas that we had come up with from camping and going on our own adventures took shape into a map, and I had this story come to mind called that I've got written. It's called Stormwolf and the Abandoned Outpost, but that was the root story that launched into motion what has become this map that you're seeing me work on. Now, that being said, in 20 years, I have developed how I want my worlds to be built, but I love to improve upon that by studying world building, studying geography, studying sociology, studying mythology, and just like I was talking about the other day about how food affects the food and what kind of foods are available in the farming, how that affects the regions and such, travel, commerce, all these things that go into world building is things that we learned in school. We thought, I'm never going to use this, and for the most part we usually don't. But then when it comes to something like this, a lot of those things come to evidence. When you've got to study weather patterns, when you've got to study why rivers run a certain way, why mountains have to line up in particular directions, and then when something goes adverse to that, you've got to explain why those things are like that. And just to leave it to, well, it's just magic, or it's just this, it's just fantasy, is really just laziness and recklessness. I mean, if you don't have a good sound reason for why a certain place or something exists, it falls flat. No, I mean, there's some people that can do that and it works well for them. So I'm not knocking on that, but this is my approach. Anyway, and one day I know that you out here will see the results of that approach and look back to these videos and say, hey, I remember him saying this. Anyway, let's get back to what we're doing. I got chased off on a squirrel, went down a rabbit hole. The white rabbit said I was late for a very important date, so let's get back to it. All right, back to the Wyvernwood. I've had time to rest my arm now, and because when you're doing this, it's taxing on both the eyes and the arms. So I'm probably going to go silent while I concentrate on this. And here we go. There's that Y again. Alright, now V, which is like a bigger Y. Alright, let me double down now a little bit. Okay. Here we go. Alright. Okay. Oh, there it is. Excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Alright, now, the wyvern wood. Okay, I'm going to pull that off here and pull it off of my mount, or my easel. But anyway, you see wyvern wood. And it'll be more clear once I'm able to fill in the wood, fill in the forest, and then erase the blue lines. So, let's go to one that's a little further out this time. Let's see. You know what? Let's go out here to the riven wood. Can you see it? No. Ah, there it is. There's the riven wood. Alright, let me... Alright. Make sure that this thing isn't going to slide on me. Okay, now get my anti-fouling paper up here, and you notice I've used this to help see what kind of shades my pins are before I ever put them on the map, so I know how it's going to affect before I do anything to the map itself. Here's riven wood. Okay. As you can tell, it's called riven wood because the wood makes it is like it's been split into a certain area. There we go. See how it's coming about. And no, doing this lettering is not easy. There's some people that can do it like their regular handwriting. And at one time, maybe I could have, but you know, when you've been out of practice for a while, it's easy for that to happen. All right, let's take a look at riven wood so you can see it now. Look at this. Ah, look at that. See it? There's riven wood. All right. Yeah, you can see my creative clutter everywhere. In fact, I'll go over here and let you see just a quick glimpse of Alderun, where I left off with it before I jump off of here. Alright, if you're ready, I'm going to flip you around. And there is where we are on Alderun. As you can see, I'm starting to fill in the elemental areas. You see the elemental realm of the air and the ancient pillars of the world. Or then you've got the ocean realms, which lead down in here, which is the elemental kingdoms, elemental realms of the water. And as you can see, if you go in closely, you'll see that the elemental realms of water have streams that go through here, which is alluding to that there's underground streams, including that which I've got to fill in the steam realm. where the fire and the water meet. There's muddy areas right through here because of the water and the earth. You see the stalactites and stalagmites of the upper earth realm, and the inner earth realm you have the geodine qualities that show that there's crystalline sources. That's an area you probably wouldn't want to follow. You might get impaled on a rock sticking up. But this is the home of the earth elementals, the realm, the kingdom of the earth elementals. This is the kingdom of the realm of the fire elementals, the realm of the water elementals, earth, and the air. So you're getting an idea of what this world encompasses, this is the whole purpose of that cutaway. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you a quick update on that as well while I'm at it. And I will probably make that its own short since it's right here at the very end. Anyway, I'm going to flip you back. All right. Anyway, I'm glad that you got to join in with me today. It was good talking with each and every one of you. Well, sort of. Getting ready, at least sharing my journey with you. And I want to thank each and every one of you that continue to join me as this world comes together. I am excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to share some histories. I'm excited to share character designs and builds and stuff with you. I am just excited to take you with me on this journey. Anyway, this is W.R. Frady, and I appreciate you joining me here on this Saturday morning or whenever this gets uploaded. You have a good day. A great weekend. We will see you next time, or I will see you next time. There's no we here unless there's somebody around I'm not seeing. Anyway, I will see you again shortly or soon. And you have an amazing weekend and a good day, and I will see you soon.